Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into a plant you've almost certainly bumped into before, even if you didn't quite know its name. We're talking about the Kalanchoe Blossfeldiana, affectionately known as the Flaming Katy. It's this incredibly vibrant, cheerful little plant, but here's the thing, it has a totally surprising secret identity. So today we're laying out the complete care and growth guide to help you transform it from just a temporary pop of color into a thriving perennial centerpiece that actually blooms for you year after year. Let's get into it.
Plant expert Anastasia Remeslo really hit the nail on the head when she said, "I picked up my first one at a hardware store for $4. I honestly thought it was disposable. Most people treat them that way." I mean, that is just so relatable, right? You see these tiny, gorgeous blooming plants sitting right by the checkout aisle at the grocery store, you buy one, you enjoy the flowers for a couple of weeks, and then, well, when the blooms fade and it just looks like a boring green plant, you toss it in the trash. We basically treat them like a long-lasting bouquet. But today, we're going to learn exactly why throwing it away is a massive missed opportunity.
Alright, so here is our roadmap for today's Explainer. First, we'll officially meet the Flaming Katy. Then, we'll uncover the succulent in disguise, reveal the darkness trick, go over pruning and propagation, and finally, tackle pests and troubleshooting.
Section 1. Meet the Flaming Katy. The basics.
So, the Flaming Katy originally hails from the beautiful island of Madagascar. Out there in the wild, it naturally grows right along the bright, partially shaded edges of dry forest canopies. It's a really compact plant, usually only reaching about 6 to 18 inches tall indoors, which honestly makes it the absolute perfect size for a desk or a windowsill. And of course, it produces these dense little clusters of tiny four-petaled flowers in literally the most vivid shades of red, orange, pink, yellow, and white. But hey, before we go any further, I do have to give you a really crucial warning. The Flaming Katy contains cardiac glycosides called bufadinolides. This makes it highly toxic to cats and dogs. So if you've got curious pets that like to nibble on your houseplants, you absolutely must keep this one well out of their reach.
Moving right along to Section 2, the Succulent in Disguise, Busting Care Myths.
It is so easy to look at those delicate, beautiful flowers and immediately assume you need to treat the Flaming Katy like some fussy, fragile tropical plant, right? We naturally think, oh, it definitely needs constant watering, super high humidity, and maybe I should mist it every day. Well, actually, scratch that. Underneath those pretty flowers, this plant is a tough, drought-tolerant succulent. It literally stores water right inside its thick, glossy, scalloped leaves. So what it actually needs is completely dry soil between waterings, just your standard average household humidity, and completely dry flowers. In fact, if you miss this plant, the water just gets trapped inside those dense flower clusters and it triggers a really nasty fungal issue called botrytis or gray mold. So whatever you do, keep it dry.
Let's just rapid fire through a quick care sheet here. For light, it absolutely craves bright indirect light. A south or west-facing window is usually ideal, just as long as it's not getting scorched by that really harsh midday sun. For water, you gotta treat it like the succulent it is. Soak it thoroughly, but only, and I mean only, when the top inch of soil is completely dry to the touch. Because it is a succulent, it absolutely demands fast-draining soil, so think a cactus mix cut with some extra perlite. And to fuel that massive floral display we all love, you'll want to give it a half-strength balanced liquid fertilizer about every 2 weeks during its active growing season in the spring and summer. Oh, and keep it cozy. The ideal temperature range for its vegetative growth is a super comfortable 60 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit.
So, if you take nothing else away from this care section, remember this. The absolute fastest, surefire way to kill a Flaming Katy is by overwatering it. Because it's a succulent, it has a surprisingly shallow root system. If you let those roots sit in heavy, waterlogged soil, they will quickly suffocate and rot away. To avoid this entirely, and to make sure you keep water completely off the leaves and flowers, bottom watering is highly recommended. Just set the pot in a shallow tray of water for like 15 to 20 minutes, let it drink up from the bottom, and then let it drain out completely.
Alright, Section 3. This is the fun part, the darkness trick, forcing a rebloom.
To pull off this trick, we kinda need to geek out on the science for a second. The Flaming Katy is what botanists call a short-day plant. This basically means its biological clock only initiates flower buds when it experiences really long, uninterrupted periods of darkness, which in nature mimics the approaching winter. Fun fact, this is the exact same mechanism used by Christmas cacti. But here is the tricky part. Indoors, even a quick flash of an overhead hall light or just the glow of a street lamp shining through your window will instantly reset the plant's internal clock and stop the blooming process dead in its tracks. So here are the 3 chronological phases of the reblooming schedule you need to follow.
First is the recovery phase in the spring and summer. You absolutely must deadhead, which just means cutting off the old, spent flower stalks. That redirects the plant's energy, and you just let it grow in bright light. Second is the short day treatment phase in early fall. This is where we introduce a strict darkness routine. During this phase, it's actually a fantastic idea to switch over to a phosphorus-heavy fertilizer to really boost that bud formation. Finally, phase 3 is blooming in the winter, where you simply return the plant to its normal, everyday lighting conditions as the new buds begin to open up.
14. That is the magic number you need to remember here. To trigger those buds during that early fall treatment phase, your Flaming Katy needs exactly 14 hours of complete, pitch-black darkness every single night for about 6 weeks. I know, it sounds super complicated, but here is a brilliant little hack for you. Simply take a large, opaque cardboard box and place it over the plant's pot every single evening at 6 p.m., and then take it off every morning at 8 a.m. During the other 10 hours of the day, just let it sit right there in its normal bright window. It is that simple.
Oh, and I've got a fantastic little expert Easter egg for you here. Once you successfully trigger those flowers and they finally start opening up, try to drop the ambient room temperature just a bit. Moving the plant to a cooler spot, somewhere around 60 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit, away from any drafty heating vents, will actually slow down the flower's life cycle, and that rewards you with a much longer, more vibrant floral display.
Section 4. Pruning and propagation. Multiplying your plant.
Multiplying your Flaming Katy is actually incredibly straightforward if you just follow the simple rule of 3. First, snip a healthy 3 to 4 inch cutting from a stem that doesn't currently have any flowers on it. Now, step 2 is absolutely critical. Do not stick it in the soil right away. Because it's a succulent, you have to let the cut end air dry for 2 to 3 days until a dry, hard callus forms over the wound. If you skip this part, the open wound will literally just rot in the dirt. Finally, step 3, gently plant that nice, calloused end into barely moist, gritty, succulent soil. Give it a few weeks and boom, it'll root and become a brand new, totally free plant.
Finally, Section 5. Pests and troubleshooting. Solving common problems. Why are my flowers fading so quickly? Man, this is, without a doubt, the single most common question and frustration people have with this plant. You buy it from the store looking absolutely gorgeous, and like a week later, the flowers are turning brown, crisping up, and dropping off. So what's going on here?
Let's break down the usual suspects, the primary environmental stressors that cause this premature fading. First up, exposure to harsh, direct afternoon sun will literally bake those delicate flowers. Second, if your room temperatures are consistently sitting above 80 degrees, that heat will cause them to rapidly expire. Third, like we discussed earlier, severe overwatering stresses out the entire root system, causing the plant to basically panic and drop its blooms. But the fourth point is actually a shopping tip. A lot of the time, the plant was already way past its peak when you bought it. So to guarantee the absolute longest display when you take it home, always try to buy a plant from the store that has mostly unopened green buds, rather than one where every single flower is already wide open.
And speaking of light, let's see how this builds into our last troubleshooting tip. Have you ever noticed your plant's stems stretching way out, creating these wide, super awkward gaps between the leaves? Well, this condition is called etiolation, and it is literally the plant's desperate cry for help. It means your plant is starving for light and is stretching itself as far as it can to find the sun. If you see this happening, you gotta move your plant to a brighter window immediately. Now, those stretched stems won't ever shrink back down to normal, but you can safely prune them right off, and the plant will push out fresh, dense, bushy growth in its brand new, sunnier spot.
Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. The very next time you're checking out at the grocery store, and you spot that vibrant little $4 plant sitting by the register, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna treat your next Flaming Katy as just a temporary bouquet that's ultimately destined for the compost bin? Or will you apply the darkness trick? Respect its succulent roots and unlock its perennial secret to keep it thriving and blooming for years to come. Well, the choice is completely yours, and now you've got the exact guide to make it happen. Keep learning and happy growing.